4th chapter of Matthew's Gospel. As he walked by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fish for people." Immediately they left their nets and followed him. As he went from there, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, in the boat with their father Zebedee, mending their nets. And he called to them. Immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
There's an old story about a hurricane that battered a coastal town. The flooding was going to be extensive, and the residents were ordered to evacuate. As the rain started to fall, the National Guard went door to door with a big truck to evacuate the town's residents that had yet to leave. They came to one house where a man was holding out. The National Guard soldiers told the man he needed to ride with them, or else he would surely drown. But the man replied, "I don't need your help. God will save me." The rains continued to fall, and the water continued to rise, and when the waters were covering the complete first floor of the man's house, a man in a motorboat rode up and said, "Come and ride away in my boat, or else you will surely drown." The man replied, "I don't need your help. God will save me." The rains continued to fall, and the water continued to rise until only the roof of the man's house was above water. The man was sitting on his roof, and a Coast Guard helicopter flew up to the house. And the Coast Guard called to the man and told him to come with them, or else he would surely drown. The man replied, "I don't need your help. God will save me." The water continued to rise, and the man drowned. When he went up to heaven, he met God and asked, "God, why didn't you save me?" God replied, "What do you mean? I sent a truck, a boat, and a helicopter. What were you waiting for?" In the gospel lesson, and the story I just told, we have two examples of fate coming up against the plans of human beings. The gospel lesson shows the disciples being called by Jesus to leave their homes and families to follow him. In one moment, Jesus changes the lives of the disciples forever and takes them away from lives that they were expecting to lead. The story of the man in the flood shows how his inability to see God working in the mundane objects of the truck, the boat, and the helicopter leads to his death in the flood. This man is so focused on what he is expecting to happen that he misses all of the opportunities that he is presented with. In both of these examples, we see life-changing events that aren't obvious. Opportunity doesn't always knock, or send a text message for that matter. Sometimes we have to be open to experiences that don't fit into our plan. It is often the experiences that we are not expecting that most shape our lives. Have you ever had an experience that's changed everything for you? As a Christian, I believe that God calls all of us to do things sometimes. Most people think that being called will be like a burning bush or a booming voice from the sky. But in my experience, the call usually comes in a single moment when an experience is open to us. Sometimes these moments are so small that we don't even realize the full significance for years. I've had a number of these experiences throughout my life that have led me to where I am today. If you had walked up to me when I graduated from St. Christopher's 8 years ago and told me, in 8 years you'll be working at St. Christopher's, I would have laughed in your face. And yet, here I am. In fact, I can point to 3 distinct moments that seemed small at the time, but that have led me to where I finally am right now. The first occurred during my freshman year at St. Christopher's. It was already clear that I had no future as an athlete, so I joined Ampersand. I planned on being an actor and appeared in 2 plays, the second of which I played the door. I figured there were a limited number of roles playing inanimate objects, so I decided to try the tech side of theater instead. About halfway through the semester, I was working on a particular project where I had to repair a big, complicated piece of electronic equipment. I had completed the work, but before closing it up and testing it out, I walked down and asked Maury Hancock to come up and take a look. He said, "No, I don't need to. I trust that you're capable of doing this without me checking over your shoulder." These few simple words had a profound effect on me. The encounter gave me permission to trust in my own technical abilities without having to worry about messing something up. This one encounter during my freshman year of high school gave me the confidence to become a pretty good lighting technician during high school, to become a great technician and a decent designer in college, and to be a theater jack of all trades now. Another opportunity that was put me on my current path, was my involvement in a group called Voices of Youth, a summer mission and choir tour that is sponsored by the United Methodist Church in Virginia. I thought this trip would be interesting, so I applied to travel with them the summer after my freshman year. I had a wonderful trip and applied again to travel with them the next year. Around Christmas time that year, I got a call from the adult leaders to ask me if I'd be willing to serve as youth staff for the trip. This essentially meant that I would be a leader among the students, and that I would lead a small group called a family group that met throughout the trip. This experience of being asked to be youth staff helped me to realize that I had leadership ability that other people recognized. It was this experience that gave me the confidence to do things like be a peer advisor my senior year at St. Christopher's, and to be an RA and mentor RA in college. The final, and perhaps most important moment that brought me to where I am today is actually a series of moments that happened over a 4-year period. See, I have known since I was about 10 that I was headed for the ministry. I had planned on this throughout high school, and when I headed to college, I still planned on being the pastor of a church. In college, I studied theater and music, and I realized that my interest in theater and music technology was not completely incompatible with my intended career path, because the church was in need of technology experts. But it wasn't until my first year of divinity school that everything changed for me in a big way. 2 things happened. First of all, I realized I was headed for much more than simply being a technology expert in churches. I was being called to completely change how the church thinks about technology. In conjunction with this, I realized I wasn't going to be a traditional church pastor. Instead, I was headed for specialized ministry in the United Methodist Church. This changed a lot of things for me, but the scariest implication was that I would have to find my own job after graduation. This new need to find my own job left me open to explore different options for when I graduated divinity school. My initial thought was that I would have to find a couple of part-time jobs at different churches, but that was not particularly appealing to me. My first glimpse at another option came the fall of the next year, when I was having lunch with my dad and my sister. She was graduating from college and thinking about what she wanted to do when she graduated. She mentioned getting a job at an independent school. The idea immediately appealed to me, which of course annoyed my sister, and I began to explore it. Everything fell into place perfectly, and I found out that St. Christopher's would be hiring someone to be the tech person for the Luck Leadership Center, right around the time that I was going to be graduating from divinity school. And less than a year later, I had been hired for the job. It is hard to believe that I've been working at St. Christopher's for almost a year and a half now. It's been great to be back in this place and to explore various facets of the way technology is used in an independent school. Even now, I seek to leave myself open to opportunities that might arise. I have begun the ordination process, and I am hoping to move to the next step in the next couple of years. I've begun to explore the prospect of working with churches to help them use technology well. For instance, I'm doing a training for pastors in Northern Virginia in November. I am also hoping to explore what the ministry has to offer me here at the school. In the coming months and years, I hope you will occasionally see me up here, leading the prayer card and giving chapel talks. Since my focus is on worship technology, you may even see me up here giving a talk with the screens down, in order to learn something about the best use of projection in the talk. It is a good idea to have a plan for your life, but it is also important that you leave room for the unexpected things that will happen. You never know when the smallest experience will end up having the biggest effect on your life. I urge you to be open to the opportunities around you, because if you're stranded in the flood and the helicopter comes to pick you up, you may not need to wait for something better to come along. Amen.